The honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Okay. Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm honored to rise today to speak to this issue in the House. And I wanted to start, first of all, by going back through a little bit of history. And I want to go back to the 80s when I was growing up. And in the 80s, the big issue was the ozone layer. There was talk about the fact that it was thinning, that there were holes in it, there was going to be sun's rays were going to be getting in and causing damage. And Prime Minister Brian Mulroney at the time, he got together with some other countries. He brought 24 countries together, and they were actually able to create the Montreal Protocol in 1987. And that actually put the wheels in motion to solve this problem. He worked with Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher. And now, if you look at the Government of Canada website, you'll see that ozone-depleting substances are decreasing, and it says that the ozone will be back to its normal state by 2050. Around the same time, acid rain was another problem. There was literally acid falling from the sky. It was causing health problems, and it was also causing problems with the vegetation. And so what happened there was that, again, Brian Mulroney was able to work with the U.S. President, and they made an agreement, an air quality agreement, and that reduced the pollution that causes acid rain. And today, you don't hear anything about acid rain because that problem has been solved. During the time from Mulroney through Prime Minister Harper, there were 10 different national parks created, including Rouge River Park in Toronto. And of course, in 2015, Prime Minister Stephen Harper set the greenhouse gas reduction targets to be 30% below the 2005 levels to be achieved by 2030. And so the common thread in all of these environmental successes is conservative leadership. In 2008, in fact, the corporate knights actually named Brian Mulroney the greenest prime minister ever. And of course, today, Harper's targets haven't even been achieved by the Liberals, and even though 5 years of running the country, they haven't been able to move towards that, and they're still many points away from hitting the targets that were set back then. So I'll take no lessons from the Liberal government on environmental issues, because you can brag about things when you've actually accomplished something for the environment. Now, what we need here is a made-in-Canada solution. I'm a tall person, and that means I'm good at certain things and not so good at some other things. For example, when a light bulb needs to be changed in our house, I'm good at that. My wife is a shorter person, and so when she needs something off of a top shelf, I'm very good at that. And the point is that we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses, and that's true for countries also. Countries have strengths and countries have weaknesses. And what we always tell our kids is that you can't become something that you're not. You have to be proud of who you are, and you have to use the skills and the talents that you have to contribute to the world. And so for Canada, it's a challenge because we have higher greenhouse gas output per capita than lots of other countries. But there's reasons for that. Canada's a very big country. We have to, when a truck needs to move from Saskatoon to Nova Scotia, that's a long distance. There's a lot of energy required to do that. Flying across our country takes a lot of energy. Canada's cold. We have to heat our homes. If we don't heat our homes, people will literally die. And so it's something that we just have to do. We also produce lots and lots of resources and lots of food, and those are very energy-intensive industries. It requires a lot of energy to produce that. So we shouldn't feel bad about that. That's who we are, and we should be proud of that. And we should find ways, and we do find ways all the time, to utilize the skills that we have to make the world a better place. And of course, this also translates into strengths. Our resource sector is a huge strength. And we can use those strengths to help the world. And we all know that, first of all, Canada has significant quantities of those resources, of all the different types of minerals, of forestry and agriculture resources. We have lots of quantities that we can help the world with. We also have the best ethical and human rights records and laws in the world. We have the highest labor standards of anywhere. We also have very high environmental standards. And all of these things then make our Canadian resources the best in the world. We also used to have a very stable market-based economy. And once the Conservatives come back into power, we will actually make sure that we get back to that stable market-based economy that Canada is so used to. We have a lot of technology to offer the world. We have carbon capture and storage. In my home province, that's a skill that we've developed, that we lead the world in that. Canada leads the world in nuclear power. In our agriculture sector, we have all kinds of advances there. I worked at a company for many years that perfected zero tillage, and it's a way of farming using less resources, keeping more carbon in the ground, and making agriculture more efficient. And these are things that we have not only developed in Canada, but we have exported all around the world to help others in the world deal with that. And of course, our oil and gas industry produces significant finances for our country. We are the 4th largest producer in the world. We employ hundreds of thousands of people and billions of dollars that comes back to our economy and to our governments through the oil and gas industry. So the challenge is to preserve our environment without sacrificing the jobs in our economy. So this legislation, the Net Zero Bill C-12, I like it. I think the reason that I like it is that it, to me, is a made-in-Canada solution to greenhouse gas emissions. It's far better than a carbon tax, in my view. Carbon tax penalizes farmers, it penalizes business owners, it penalizes people that are heating their homes. All of these people get penalized through carbon tax, and carbon tax doesn't reduce demand unless the amount of the tax goes way, way up. And of course, we know that the government is planning to increase it to $170 a ton, but that isn't enough to actually make a significant difference in the consumption. And carbon tax is based on a fundamental assumption that there are one of two possible outcomes. First outcome is that things stay status quo, they remain as they are, greenhouse gases continue to rise, and that causes trouble in our environment. The other outcome, though, it assumes, is that we have to make drastic changes to our lifestyle. We have to turn our temperature from 21 down to 15, or we have to get rid of anything that uses fuel. We have to just make drastic changes in our lifestyle. And it looks at those are the two options that we have. But I would suggest there's a third option. Our Canadians are very resilient, very creative, very smart. And I got a couple of examples that I want to share with you. In Saskatchewan, there's a company called Gibson Energy. This is a company that recently expanded their production capacity by 25% with zero increase in the greenhouse gases that go with it. So they found a way to increase production and yet keep greenhouse gases the same. Right next door to my province in Alberta, there's another company called Enhance Energy, and what they do is they capture carbon from the Sturgeon refinery and from the nutrient fertilizer facility, and they transport that carbon and sequester it underground in old wells. And so far, in less than 10 years, they've sequestered enough carbon that is the equivalent of 350,000 cars, taking them off the road. So that's a significant improvement and a significant accomplishment. And what's even better, Madam Speaker, is that we can take this technology and this knowledge that we have, and we can actually export it around the world. So we have our portion of greenhouse gases that we can affect here in Canada, but if we can take our technology and leverage that by sending it around the world, we can actually punch above our weight. We can actually reduce greenhouse gases or help the rest of the world, and we can achieve even a better result than just what we can on our own. So we can have a significant impact in the world. We can punch above our weight. And that's what Canadians are. Canadians are resilient. Canadians are very smart. Canadian companies are very creative. And that's where we can really make a significant difference. Now, as I end, I just want to come back to a question I get a lot, which is what would Conservatives do? And I can tell you two things that we would do for sure. Number one is we would get rid of the inefficient, economic-killing carbon tax. And we would instead focus on made-in-Canada solutions, like the Gibson Energy example, like the Enhance Energy example. We would allow Canadians to innovate, to be creative, and to be able to make a real significant difference, not just in Canada, but all over the world. Because as we export these ideas and share these ideas with the world, we will also make the world an overall better place and help everyone to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you, Madam Speaker.